Hello everyone, Kristina Werner here. Welcome to another video for SimonsStamp.com. Welcome to a new year. We're going to jump right in and start with a Valentine's Day card or a love card. And I'm going to use this little tiny die here. This is the Faux mini envelope die that I designed that came out in December. I've been wanting to create a card with this Faux mini envelope die because this has just been in my head for ages, and it's why I wanted to create this die. So I've chosen 6 different colors of cardstock from SimonsStamp.com. All of the colors will be listed down below if you want to know specifically what colors I used. But the reason why I designed this mini envelope die as a faux envelope is because when little die cuts are at this size and you have thick cardstock, like the Simons Stamp thick cardstock that's very substantial, it's a really nice cardstock, when you start folding them, they can get really bulky. And essentially, these are mini envelopes that aren't going to be used as an envelope, so it doesn't need to look real. So that's why I created one that only has the top and bottom flap. I'm going to put some hearts on the envelopes later, so I die cut those using the Mini Hearts Party. And then I'm using this stencil set from CZ Design to put some patterns on 3 of the envelopes. I'm using kind of monochromatic colors for each one of the cardstocks. So I'm using a darker purple with this small purple envelope. I'm using the ink color Iris and the star stencil, just putting a few stars on that. And then I'm going to darken up the 2 flaps on the top and bottom. This is just going to give it a little bit of a color variation once the flaps are folded into the center area of the envelope. I'm going to fold it right here just to kind of see what I've got going here. But you can see that it looks really, really cute when you emphasize the flaps by adding a little bit of a darker ink color. I'm going to move on to some other envelopes. I'm using the color Sangria on top of this red cardstock. It's a nice deep red shade. It actually darkens this red cardstock quite a bit. I think if I was to redo this one, I would not have put such a heavy coating of the ink on here, but it was a new ink pad and it was very juicy. I'm now using the color ink Taffy on top of some dull pink cardstock. These 2 colors pair well together for a monochromatic look. I'm adding those polka dots and then just ink blending the edges on those flaps. And I was very careful not to blend too much this time since I had learned my lesson with the red envelope. With the pale pink envelope, I used the color Peony. And this one I kept plain without a pattern and just brought in some of that ink blending on the flaps just to give it a little bit of a different shade. And this really does darken up the pink color of the cardstock. For my next envelope, this is surf blue cardstock, and I'm using the diagonal stripe stencil, which is really fun because if you want to just have some basic stripes, you can use the stencil just once. And I'm going to show you how it looks. I'm focusing on those flaps because that's all that will be shown. So this is what it looks like with just one set of stripes done, but you can actually center the stripes, like shift it over, and then put the stripes that are already blended, put those directly in the center under the stencil, and then blend on top again. And you can do a different color or even a darker color, darker application like I'm doing here. And then when I remove the stencil, I have a tone-on-tone stripe effect. I think it looks really neat. I kind of want to come back and revisit this stencil in the future because I really loved the look of it. For the yellow envelope, I used the color Sunbeam to darken up those flaps, just ink blending that on. By the way, I'm using a Waffle flower stencil mat. It kind of holds the cardstock in place while I do all my ink blending, so it aids me while I do the ink blending, especially when I've got that stencil on top. Okay, each one of these does have a score line for you. You can fold it, but sometimes the cardstock's pretty thick and it can crack. Like it kind of cracked a little bit when I tested that purple one. So I decided to reinforce the scoring lines with a scoreboard. This is a Score Buddy, and I'm using I think it's the Score and Place tool. I'm not entirely sure what it's called. It's from Simon. I'll have it linked down below, but I'm going to use the scoring end to reinforce the score lines on all of these envelopes. And then I'll be using the Place tip on this tool to place those hearts that I die cut earlier. So I'm scoring all of these, and then after I had them all scored and ready to kind of look at them again, I decided that the cardstock color underneath, like the lighter shade, was a little bit too stark. So I decided to add those same ink colors over top of the envelopes, but just have it come in a little bit on those sides so that when the envelope is closed, it has a little bit more color on it and it doesn't look quite so stark. I think it gives it more of a finished look this way. So I used those same exact colors that I'd used for the back side of the envelope. I used those on the inside of the envelope as well. And this is really going to aid in making it look like a real envelope as well. Ink blending those on, and then I'm just going to kind of set these things aside, clean up a little bit, and I'll start assembling the envelopes. I found that you just need a little tiny dab of glue right on the bottom flap, and then you can close that up. I then put my glued envelopes under a paperweight. You could also stack some acrylic blocks or just something that has a little bit of weight to it, so it will keep those die cuts folded while the glue dries. So I added glue to each one of these envelopes, and I was really loving how they looked once I had that interior kind of center panel ink blended on the sides. I think it looks really, really cool. This would be fun to do with double-sided pattern paper as well. I was looking through my stash for some double-sided pattern paper, but I couldn't get the idea of having just really colorful solid cardstock. I couldn't get that out of my mind. So after I had all of these envelopes assembled and glued shut, it was time to start kind of arranging them on my card front. And I realized that I wanted to add some details to my card front. So here's my folded card. I'm going to open it up and score from the inside on the front of the card. I thought it'd be really kind of fun to have an embossed border around all of the envelopes. And at first I thought I would just have it be a frame that would be a 1/2 inch from each edge. So that's why I'm not going all the way to the fold or to the cut edge of the front of my card. And I rotated my card as I did that going around. But as I was doing that, I realized it was really hard to get those corners matched up just right. So eventually I'll go back and just extend these score lines all the way to each edge of the card there. So here I am, like, yeah, I'm going to extend it. I was kind of deciding, I'm like, what do I want to do? It was just easier just to extend it so it kind of has a crisscross at each corner, and I think it still looks really great. So here is my finished card. I did have one little spot where I'd accidentally scored the wrong area, and I just kind of pressed from the front, and that pushed that score line back in and kind of corrected it. So now I have my card inside a MISTI stamp positioning tool. I'm arranging my envelopes, and I'm determining where I'm going to put my greeting. I'm using a greeting from the My Love Greetings stamp set, and I decided to go with a very simple one line that just says love and hugs. So using one of the placement guides available from Simon Says Stamp, I positioned my greeting and put it on there perfectly straight, and then picked it up with the door of my MISTI, peeled off that placement guide, and then got to my stamping. I removed those envelopes, prepped the area with an anti-static powder tool, and then stamped the greeting in Versamark ink. It's a clear ink that's great for embossing. So I'm going to sprinkle on some heat embossing powder. This is the color Gilded from Brutus Monroe. It's one of my favorite embossing colors. That's why I have it in its own container. And then I came in with a heat tool, and I really heated this very slowly. I didn't leave my heat tool on the area too long in any one place, and that was just to prevent warping. And overall, I was really impressed with how well this embossed without warping the cardstock too much. And then I'm left with this beautiful gold greeting that looks great. So then I put some foam adhesive on the back of each one of the envelopes, and then I started to kind of place them on the front of my card, get them all arranged, kind of figured out exactly where I wanted them to be placed. And then I brought in a T-square ruler just to help me get these envelopes pressed on just right. So I used my T-square ruler off to the side to arrange the envelopes. And I did eyeball some of them as well, just because it was a little bit easier than using the ruler completely. So I mostly just wanted to get them on there completely horizontal, and I had the ruler to help me with that. But as far as vertically, I just did it by how it looked, just by how it looked kind of arranged and straightened up. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in those hearts that I cut earlier. I'm picking each one of them up with this kind of sticky wax end of my tool, putting a little dab of glue on that flap, and then placing that directly down on top. This is a great way to adhere lots of little tiny embellishments. It's great for gems, pearls, sequins, rhinestones, anything like that. And then to add a little bit of shine and detail to the hearts, I came in with some Ranger Glossy Accents. This is going to give a really glossy shine to those hearts. It's a little bit hard to see in the video or even in the final photos, but the gloss on those hearts really is quite cute. I think you could also use a white glitter or some Stickles glitter glue, and it would look great. So thanks for joining me today. All of the supplies that I used are listed down below in the video description or in the supplies at the blog. Thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you in another video very soon.
I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonsSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.